ancestors crushed fascism. Beneath the weight of American tanks, they toppled communism by the strength of American culture. And now we will defeat woke radicalism and a continuation of communism, because that's what this is heading for. We will defeat it with the sheer power of American pride and American brain.
What does it mean to be an ally? We each play a role in clearing barriers to ensure our colleagues feel like they belong. This guide and our series of resources explores what it means to be an ally. Okay, keep in mind this is addressed to adults, right? What is an ally? An ally is an individual who is not a member of a specific marginalized groups, but fights alongside them for justice. Great. Love it. By speaking up, allies increase awareness across a broader audience and share the burden often placed on marginalized groups to educate others. So we're talking about being an ally for Black and African American communities. So this guy needs to speak up to increase awareness across a broader audience like other of this guys and share the burden often placed on marginalized groups, which I guess means not this guy, to educate others like this guy. Allyship, I guess it's a word now, is a continuous process. It requires persistent learning, skill building, and action. So now we're being told that this word called allyship requires persistent learning and skill building and action. In order to be on Team Human and not discriminate against people who aren't white, that requires a lot of work. You got a lot of work ahead of you guys. You know, you whites. You can't just understand history, realize inherent racism. Guys, racism is an inherent thing. It's in our DNA. Okay? It makes perfect sense. Think about it. How many countries across the globe are melting pots like America? You think there's a reason for that? Do you not think there's a reason that there's a fear of spiders? You see a spider, you automatically get a little jolt, right? There's also a reason. I mean, in the history of our species, you are in a group of people who look pretty much exactly like you and your parents your whole life. And when you run into a group of people who maybe have slightly different bone structure or slightly different skin tone, you are worried because people go to war with each other. Tribes fight tribes. That's just history. And that's just humanity. That's how it's been for eons. So racism exists. I'll give you that. But it exists for that reason. It's a natural hesitancy to trust those who don't look like you. Now, is that racism? Yeah, but that's also science and history. Now, what has happened, the beautiful thing that's happened, is a realization that there's humanity is a thing. It's one family, and that is due in very large part to Christianity. Nobody wants to mention that. No. Martin Luther King, do they still teach Martin Luther King in schools anymore? I hope they do. The point is, so we can all acknowledge that and move forward as one human family. It wasn't easy, right? Because of tribalism, and that's not worth addressing for these people. They want to make it a thing. And as far as I'm concerned, it hasn't been a real thing in a long time. They're like reintroducing it. As that guy said,
racism in America would by and large be dead today if it were not for certain people and institutions keeping it on life support. Putting critical race theory into our classrooms is not combating racism, it's fanning the flames of what little embers are left.
How can you be an ally for the Black and African American community? This is a company, right? American Express? What are we doing? Now listen to how patronizing. This sounds like they're talking about Black and African American people like they're a different species. You'll see what I mean. Understand your privilege. Before standing up for others, identify the privileges or advantages you have that others may not. Okay, I'll identify that. I once got pulled over and got a warning for speeding. Okay, let's move on. For example, are people in your race widely represented in media and entertainment? Well, let's see. 13% of the population in America is African American. Now, turn on any entertainment show. Is only 13% of them African Americans? Huh? Were you able to choose a college without worrying about the financial burden? Now, okay. Here's the mistake that they're exposing themselves. They are exposing themselves here, right? They're saying, if you're white, you're rich. If you're Black or African American, you're poor. Now, what does that say about them? They're so out of touch, they assume that all Black people are poor? And they've just been, I guess, paid less for the same work? It's nonsense. And what it is at a deeper level, it's exposing their own racism. I'll tell you more about that. One second. Reflect on how these advantages made it possible to get you where you are today. Doing this work will help prepare you to better understand the obstacles other people face. Okay, number one of the biggest things to get ahead is networking. Knowing the right people, having the right family members, and getting ahead that way. Now that doesn't point to racism. That points to corruption. I didn't have any of those. I've known Black people who did have some of those. Now, I'm not saying that they have some sort of privilege that I don't have, because I don't give a shit. Your life is your life. You get the hands you're dealt, and you do what you can with those cards. There's no, like, victimization. It's all about victimization, this shit. All right, actively listen and learn. Listen to this. How patronizing it is. This is like speaking as though they're talking like in a club to other whites, because they're also white, right? And they have their own vices and insecurities. And again, they're projecting those on me. And they're talking to me as though I am in the same world that they're in, right? And they're talking about Blacks and African Americans like they're pets. They're talking to me like a child, like I'm a child, and they're teaching me. We're talking about American Express. These are grown people. Do more listening than speaking. When someone trusts you enough to share their personal experiences. Oh, cool. So once I gain the trust of a Black or African American person enough that they want to share their personal experiences, I have to believe what they're saying and don't make assumptions or give unsolicited advice. What do you mean unsolicited? I'm trying to think of a situation where a Black person, because now I can't, now I'm not allowed to think of them as a person, right? Because this is telling me that I'm an ally for them because they're Black or brown or African American, right? So, number one, that's an issue for me socially. But now I'm listening to a brown, right? You see that? You see how this has gotten weird already? And now I have to have on my brain, I have to think, okay, I have to believe what they're saying and don't make assumptions or give unsolicited advice. So I can't say, so yeah, I'm having a real issue, man. My girl left and she took my kids and I got problems with that. You know, I don't know what to do, man. Okay, I believe you. And I'm not going to make any assumptions. I'm not going to give any advice. Yeah. Yeah. Is that good for society? This is all designed to create more friction between the races. And it shouldn't be. We are far beyond that. We're people. More than that, we're Americans. American citizens. And now you're creating like this whole thing like we got to be like second guessing our instincts as brothers and friends with our neighbors. This shit makes me sad, man. It's nuts. Try to understand the prejudices and challenges impacting Black and African American community. This requires consistent and continuous learning. Research via blogs, books, podcasts, social media, and news articles. Now, this is like this gets at the base of everything that I'm saying, right? Projection. Okay? The people writing this assume that, like them, you don't have any contact with Black or African American people. So you don't know. You don't know. No, you didn't spend your life being educated, K through 12, 4 years in college, 8 years of working amongst people who are not white. They just assume that the only way for you to understand their plight is to do research via blogs, books, podcasts, social media, and news articles. So now we're talking about Black people like there's something we have to do some research about. I'm like, fuck you. What are you talking about? Like, you're assuming that I'd like just don't talk to people who aren't white? Huh? Projection. It's silly. Speak up, not over. Use your voice to educate others, but don't speak over members of Black and African American community. Now that is nonsense. I'm pretty sure if I ask any Black or African American person, it depends on, what we're talking about, where we're going, what the direction of the conversation is, what the context is in terms of like, are we talking about a certain subject? Are we moving towards something? Nope. According to American Express, don't speak over members of the Black and African American community. When a colleague is willing to speak up, let them do so first and identify how you can raise awareness without putting the burden on them to educate others? I don't know what the fuck that's talking about, but I got a nice clip here we can watch in the meantime while we digest that bullshit.
I won't ruin the challenge, but it somewhat gives you some idea of, what type of ally you could possibly be. Now, I think to put it out there to say, like, if you don't see your form of allyship here, that you're not an ally, I don't think that's...
Now watch this guy. Watch this guy.
It's true at all. But I think this is a really interesting guideline that could, help you towards a true form of allyship.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, absolutely right. I mean, it's
He almost violated the rule. You gotta let the blacks and browns as people speak first. No excuses, white boy.
other people. Is it like Terrell was saying, are you a lazy one? Are you more, involved? Like, what are, it helps.
Allyship. I got another one. Head nods abound.
How do you assist brown and Black people and your counterparts, within equal rights? Like, how do you, like you're saying, are you one that just stand on the sides and just watch it happen? Or do you take a more of a participative
head nods
approach?
Nodding.
Absolutely. I mean, with these crazy times, and we're seeing a lot of layoffs in the workforce,
Head
and
nod.
we know who's affected most than others. So yeah, it's very important. Trevor, more questions?
Well, I was gonna say I like that it's referred to as a spectrum. This idea that you can shift yourself on that
She
scale.
loves it. She loves
because
that.
for a lot of people, I think looking at this is going to be even.
She's not liking it so much anymore. You got to go back to the spectrum talk. They love spectrums. Be careful, white boy.
Even if you feel like you're an ally, you know, they're tough questions. They're like, okay, well, you know, yes.
So these are people from Microsoft, right? What does it mean to be an ally? Black designers at Microsoft help others to explore the idea. I think there's 4 designers who are black. 33% are Asian, which I thought was kind of funny because they make up 6.7% of total U.S. population, but they don't say anything about that, do they?
Are you just doing this when whatever the latest hashtag is going on, and that's when you're most vocal, you know? Or are you, and, you know, it's also, so you all know this.
Uh-oh, what's coming up? She doesn't look too happy about it, does she?
The meeting was off. I was on vacation in a rural state, and the rural state, you know, there were folks there who were marching for Black Lives.
Watch your words.
In this town that's, you know, not to mince words, I mean, it's full of some pretty, you know.
What? This rural town is full of some pretty... You got any guesses? I bet you have a guess. What's he gonna say? And how's she gonna react?
White supremacist sort of values. You know.
What are some white supremacists' values? Just wondering. What are some white supremacist values? We don't want you making kids with the Negroes. Don't hire any Negroes. Is that what it is? What's a white supremacist value? Yeah, you gotta use the coloreds only drinking fountain. Negro, you gotta sit in the back of the bus. Is that really a thing? What the fuck is he talking about? White supremacist values? Fucking what the hell are you talking about? Help me out. What the fuck is he talking about with those little yellow headphones? Guys, you mind if I kick him out of the white race? I'm gonna do that.
And like looking at them is like they, man, you know, like I'm just impressed when like that's a much more difficult conversation or a much more difficult platform to speak from.
Is it because you have nothing to say?
Than here in Seattle, where it's pretty easy for me to go out to a march and like.
Hey, Seattle's great. The marches are super free. They're very fiery, but mostly peaceful. Seattle's great. Yeah, people love Seattle. They're not fleeing by the tens of thousands.
I don't feel there's everybody else is out there, or feels like everybody else is out there with you, and like, you know, then you look at it and like, well, am I taking the same risk, or you know, I could go above and beyond than what I'm doing now compared to these other folks who are like literally sort of putting it out there.
They love nodding, man.
And of course, that's nothing compared to
just keep
anybody
nodding.
else. You know, I've still got plenty of privilege.
You got plenty of privilege, plenty of ice cream and cakes.
Just my skin color. So.
Oh, that's great. That's rich. Yeah, it's my skin color.
I do. I really like that idea of the spectrum. So.
You do. You know, she does too. So winning points all around, dude. Keep it up, white boy.
Something came to my mind. What's the most important question you think in this challenge? You would think this is really crucial when you guys were putting it together. Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a really good question. You know, Tyrion, I'm definitely going to let you answer this one first.
I think for me, the most important question is, you know, what does allyship mean? I mean, for everyone else, it does.
That's a great fucking question. I got the answer. Apparently it means an individual who is not a member of a specific marginalized group, but fights alongside them for justice. You know, this guy.
Depending on your background and what you dealt with, it means something completely different. So it definitely is one of those things where you are taking a look in yourself and just kind of saying like, do I show kind of behaviors that are a little bit on the not so cool side? Or
I like to look at myself and think, am I doing things in life that are improving myself and achieving what I want to achieve in life? No, apparently that's not good enough. You got to think about,
do I really, treat people as fairly as possible? So when you think of allyship and thinking of just like, it kind of makes other people look at their privilege and really just say like, yeah, maybe I got some things to work on.
the sickening part about that is that she's talking about white people. She's talking about this guy, right? She's talking about herself. Has she ever had to undergo that strange psychological analysis? Self-analysis? I don't think so. So what is she saying? Is she not being treated well? Are people like calling her the N-word and stuff? Come on. You think she was asked like, oh, we'd really like to hire you, but can you change your hair? Like, no. It's all a ruse. It's all a mechanism, guys. Part of a series of systematically breaking down our society because we are a strong, striving, free country, right? So what's the thing? How do we end this? How do we get over this country? Well, hey, you know what we can do? Number one, let's depopulate them. Well, how do you do that? It's a melting pot. There's a lot of different people with different ideas and different values and different religions and different beliefs. Well, it's majority European whites. So let's target those people. Okay? Sounds good. Sounds good enough. All right, cool. Let's do that. Let's convince them to not want to procreate and not want to propagate the species, right? Let's convince them that they aren't their own gender. That might work. That might work. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's spill in a bunch of people who aren't white Europeans who love to have kids to replace them. Right? Go with me. Come on. I got a plan here. It's going to work. So now we convince all these young whites that they'd rather, dye their hair and get piercings and put paint on their face and stuff. And now we've gotten it to the point. I know you're excited, but listen, this has already been in the making. We're kicking ass here. Now we're at the point where most of them don't even want to be called him or her. They are offended. They're offended by using pronouns. Trust me. A lot of those guys and gals and Z's are not going to have kids. So, good job there. Secondly, you're going to love this. We've convinced white European Americans that not only they should hate their gender that they were born with, they should also hate their parents. Their parents are racisms. And we also convinced them, it's the finale, that their country is racist. This is the only country on the planet where the kids are convinced that their country is evil. Good job, guys.